So in the new executive order guidance we've been provided by OMB, we are asked to stand up an AI governance committee that will be chaired by myself and the agency deputy secretary.
You're using natural language processing to extract signals of suicide risk from clinical progress notes. Has anyone ever rejected an AI use case?
How in the world are you going to protect 1,100 petabytes of sensitive information?
It sounds like they are not notified. It is not disclosed to the patient if their information is being analyzed by AI. This is the subcommittee's third privacy hearing. We take this subject very seriously. Veterans entrust the VA with data on every aspect of their lives, often more information than any other government agency or company possesses. Yet, the VA struggles at every level to comply with the law and keep veterans' health, personal, and financial information secure. Data breaches happen every few months, and they have taken many different forms. We have seen mass errors by a contractor mailing letters to the wrong veterans. We have seen employees lose or steal records and send files beyond the VA network where their ultimate destination is unknown. We have also seen companies gain access to veterans' data under false pretenses. No successful large-scale cyber attack on the VA has been disclosed in several years. But we also know the department is the target of thousands of attacks every day. I will now introduce the witnesses on our first and only panel. From the VA, we have Chief Technology Officer Charles Worthington. Mr. Worthington, serves as the Chief AI Officer. It's good to see you again. We also have Dr. Gil Alterovitz, the Director of VA's National Artificial Intelligence Institute. In addition, we have Deputy Chief Information John Oswalt, who serves as the Chief Privacy Officer, and Ms. Stephania Griffin, the Director of Information Access and Privacy Office in the Veterans Health Administration. Finally, we have Ms. Shane Tews, a non-resident senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. The VA has a National AI Center, a working group, oversight committees, and an institutional review board for AI. Many of these seem like talking shops. Who vets proposed AI projects and decides what gets approved, what is inappropriate, and how veterans' data will be used?
Thank you for the question. The agency, I would say, is in our early stages of standing up the governance of AI as a separate category. And the framework that we've put in place with the National AI Institute, which Dr. Alterovitz can talk more about, was basically designed to catalog use cases of AI across the agency and then assess those use cases for consistency with our trustworthy AI principles in relation to the earlier executive order on AI. And so at this moment, what we are attempting to do is document all of the cases that the VA is experimenting with and indeed bringing AI use cases into production and ensuring we have those documented so that we can assess them using the governance standards that will continue to evolve.
So who is ultimately, taking this information and making the final determination about what it will be used for and what it won't be used for? Is it a panel? Is it a group? Who's making the final call?
So in the new executive order guidance we've been provided by OMB, we are asked to stand up an AI governance committee that will be chaired by myself and the agency deputy secretary, and we're in the process of finalizing that.
Mr. Worthington, if we have these decisions being made at the local level, we have them being made at the VISN level, and then we have them being made at your level, has anyone ever rejected an AI use case?
I would have to go back.
And how do we make sure that we've got some type of conformity or some consistency amongst?
I think that consistency is exactly what we want to create at the central level so that we can cascade that out to the field so that decisions can be made locally for smaller pilots or for earlier stage risks. It is important, I think, to point out, though, that anything that is going live into production and touching veteran data, that would follow the same processes as existing IT systems have to follow in terms of an authority to operate, an authority to connect.
How do you know a bad AI use case when you see one?
So we've been working together on integrating all of the different policies into our trustworthy AI framework that came out this July. It integrates those executive orders as well as NIST, as well as agency-specific guidance, like we have a data ethics framework, for example. And so it actually became the first department-wide trustworthy AI framework that includes all those latest items. And so using that and using the implementation guide that we've been now developing, there are a series of questions that we analyze to determine if a use case falls under the consistent or inconsistent category with the principles, and thereby being consistent or inconsistent with the different guidances like EO 13960, 14110, and the other ones.
How is the VA working to combat these biases that may impact access to care for minority veterans?
It's a wonderful question, and it's one that our colleagues in VHA who designed the Trustworthy AI framework have really been thinking a lot about, as have both administrations with the executive orders. I think the key to understanding how any particular AI may introduce biases is to understand the data that it was trained on and then the outputs that it gives given a set of inputs. And so assessing the potential for bias in each of the models is one of the 6 principles of our ethical or our trustworthy AI framework. And it's one of those things the governance bodies are looking at when they're assessing each of the use cases.
The VA has historically struggled when it comes to collecting data on veterans' racial, ethnic, and LGBT plus identities. How is the VA compensating for gaps in its data to ensure that bias is mitigated in AI projects?
That is a great question. I may have to take part of that back for the record, but I think that obviously the VA's health system is very large, and our data is we have lots of data, but the veteran population also is not exactly representative of the country in terms of gender and other attributes. And so every time we create a model or any sort of analysis using only VA data, the researchers have to be cognizant of the limitations inherent in that data set.
How many projects or use cases do you currently have underway?
Clarification, is that a question of for our group specifically, for the VA in general, or?
Your National Institute.
The National Institute. We collaborate and engage in, I would say, maybe 15 to 20 projects.
In addition to the projects that Dr. Alterovitz is describing, where his group worked specifically to shepherd them along, there are other uses of AI in production today across our health system. Primarily, these are things in categories like medical devices. For example, there's a product called GI Genius, which helps oncologists or others identify scans and look for cancers. And so in addition to those that this organization helped with, the VA does have a number of the more traditional AI models in production now.
How in the world are you going to protect 1,100 petabytes of sensitive information? Because there's the old saying, a secret is something you tell one person at a time. How are you going to protect against the cascading release across the commercial sector? And it seems to me like it is impossible to put the horse back in the barn once it's out. Can you talk to me about that?
It is a great question, and it's something we think about all the time, how to protect that data. We do have existing contractual rules around what vendors can do with the data. And so in general, when we're building models or analyzing this data, that is happening within the VA environment with tools that we're hosting internally, as opposed to sending that data outside of the VA.
Okay, so I'm about out of time. So what is the sanction if someone releases the data? What is the sanction you have on them?
I might defer to Mr. Oswalt on that.
Well, it defers back to the contractual language. In the IT realm, there is standard language in every contract which lays out the expectations.
So give me an example of a sanction for someone that would release sensitive information.
Well, I know it's a acquisitions question, but I've seen contracts over my career that have been canceled because of non-performance to the letter of the contract. For egregious activity, it would probably be turned over to our Inspector General's office for investigation.
But one thing to keep in mind is that you are dealing with a closed loop, which I think a lot of us, when we think about artificial intelligence right now, are really fascinated with the learning language models, the LLM, which is a lot of data going out from a lot of sources. You have a very finite, I mean, it's a lot of terabytes of data, but it's a finite area where you can actually do some amazing sandbox studies that you can't do in the open public. So I would think, I'm not a clinician, but the whole idea of what you could do in an environment like the Veterans Affairs on medicine is very amazing, as long as we make sure that those guardrails are in place.
We have a, I would say, robust existing privacy policy on all vendor and IT contracts that really is explicit about what our partners are allowed to do with VA data and not allowed. And so any time we are allowing a vendor access to VA data, it's usually just under the, or it is under the strict confines of what that contract is for. And my colleagues could talk more about the specifics, but we would be seeking to avoid cases where veteran data or really any of our data would wind up in some general purpose model that it was not expected to be.
So my question is then, it sounds like they are not notified. It is not disclosed to the patient if their information is being analyzed by AI. Is that correct?
Correct. There's not a specific notice.
Do you think that that is maybe something that should be in policy so that an individual knows that their information is being analyzed by AI and now is subject to all of the different potential problems that could take place that we haven't even identified yet, in addition to the fact that they may be getting some type of analysis given to them that was created by AI?
I think that's something that the Data Governance Council and the AI framework that's being set up needs to look at more closely.
Most of your data breaches happen when letters or digital files get sent to the wrong veterans or when paper records are misplaced. Typically, an employee or contractor makes a mistake and an employee discovers it. Once you realize a breach has happened, what do you do to trace down where the information went, and also what are you doing, what actions are you taking to get that information back again?
When a data breach happens, and it's either employee self-report or a veteran who might have received something that wasn't theirs, the privacy officer or the information security officer at the subject facility will enter an incident ticket in a system we call PSETS, which is the Privacy Security Event Tracking System. And there is a data breach response service team, a group of individuals who work for me, who begin the investigation of what happened. They work with the medical center folks, the staff, the veterans, a lot of times, the individuals, and based on what they adjudicate, there is a VA-wide body called the Data Breach Core Team, which investigates further and makes a determination whether it's a whether one is VA is at fault, and two is credit monitoring warranted, and also what type of event it is, PII or PHI.
I just wanted to add that one of the things that's most complicated when using AI in a healthcare setting is it's embedding in the workflow, right? So if someone has to enter another password or something like that, it takes them out of their workflow. It also, sometimes you lose data potentially as you have to kind of translate from one system to another. So essentially, the closer it is into the native pipeline of data, the better you are going to be in terms of the output and how it will affect and be able to be stored and then used by future physicians for clinical decision making.
There were recently 2 data breaches at the Asheville, North Carolina Medical Center. Please tell us what happened, how the medical center reacted to that, how your office responded, and how long that response took.
One of the Asheville incidents was 3 individuals received files containing, I think, approximately 1,500 veterans' protected information. And I believe that it was through the My Healthy Vet portal. So it was not open email. And the 3 individuals One of them self-reported back to the medical center that, hey, I think I got something that I shouldn't have gotten. And 2 of the messages were indicated as being read, and the third was retrieved, pulled back. The normal process of responding to that would be, as I indicated before, working with the privacy officer at the facility, the information security officer, and then the data breach response service would do the investigation and then the adjudication of how that, and I believe this indicated it was a personal protected health information, so it did warrant a notification to HHS as a protected HIPAA entity and resulting press release also. The other event I'm actually,
Excuse me, and how long did it take to turn that scenario around, that exercise around, to get the information collected and protected?
I would have to get back to you on the committee with that information, sir, because I don't want to speculate.
What did we do about these 700 veterans and their Social Security numbers going out on the mail, and what was the response to that, and what kind of response time did we have?
Again, sir, I would have to go back and ask for your forbearance and put the information in the record, but the process remains the same, that there is a initial reporting by whatever entity discovers it, an investigation, and then an adjudication and a determination made. Is credit monitoring offered? Generally, in the cases of SSN use and a name, or even the date of birth, credit monitoring offers are tendered to the veteran.
Okay, that sounds like a very timely process, and I'm thinking about someone's Social Security number and their information floating around out in the public somewhere, and that is very problematic, because I think everyone in this room certainly understands it does not take that long for someone to take that kind of information and use it in a nefarious way against our veterans.
If Congress continues to be unable to pass sustaining funding, what is VA's plan for working around this hurdle?
Well, we're working with what we have. You know, we are pretty tight in terms of the number of employees within OIT, and so the ability to bring new folks on with that expertise is limited. I think what we are looking to do is, as best we can, shuffle existing resources to explore these priorities. But obviously, it's hard to start new things when we're focused on running all of our existing things.
The breach of Lighthouse, that one or more claims sharks, apparently, as we referred to them, monetized personal information. Was that process? Was that security, cybersecurity? Was it employee? How did that breach happen?
Thank you for the question. And I'm not sure that we've called that a breach, but I guess what I understand from the situation is that our Office of General Counsel assessed that some of the partners that were using the Lighthouse program were not in compliance with the Title 38 rules, and so we removed them from that program. I think that was discovered as a part of the assessment that all partners of Lighthouse should be put through a framework that we assess all public-private partnerships with, and as a part of that, the OGC group that reviews partnerships like that identified a potential issue with these.
So we're back to my sanctions. You simply remove them from the project. In the future, that will be an incentive for your partners to monetize, to use the information improperly. They'll use it improperly, they'll get the benefit from it, and you'll simply remove them from the program. In my mind, that's not a significant enough sanction. And you have Dr. Alterovitz, you have a very high-sounding name, the National AI Institute. So is this the National AI Institute with overall jurisdiction for AI development in the nation? Are there other national institutes for AI?
We're the one within the VA. We were started as a joint effort between the Office of Research and Development and the Secretary's Center for Strategic Partnerships.
Are there other national institutes in the United States?
Oh, there are definitely other national institutes on a number, I mean, like...
So which department has overall jurisdiction for the development of AI?
There's no one, to my knowledge, there's no one department that is associated with developing all of AI. A number of agencies, the Department of Energy, HHS, they have either centers of excellences or institutes.
Okay.
You're using natural language processing to extract signals of suicide risk from clinical progress notes and other medical records. We need to do whatever we can to prevent veteran suicide. We know that I've heard everything from 19 veterans a day to as high as 24. But we need to be extremely careful. First of all, how prone to false positives is the software, and what level of accuracy do you consider acceptable? I'm concerned that this could lead to a violation of veterans' rights, limiting personal freedoms and gun ownership.
Yeah, thank you for your question. I think everything that you've said are concerns that need to be looked at. So where this uses AI is in the natural language processing, right? Looking at those notes and extracting potential meaning out of it. There's always a human in the loop that then looks at the results. And so this is a way to help them shift through a large amount of text. And
There's a human reviewing that, but there's also a human who's creating those notes. So we have a very subjective component that is part of this analysis that we have to be very, very careful of. So do the veterans know that the VA is using this technology? And if so, could it color, could it taint what they're willing to tell their healthcare providers?
For ones that are involved in research, there's a consent form and then they would be aware. For ones in operations, generally there are tools used that have been publicized on our website through the inventory that explain how they use AI.
Okay, so we still don't have a good, consistent disclosure process that is being utilized and being signed off by our veterans, correct? Across the system.
That is correct. I do not.
Okay, again,
we can
please,
say
that has got to be elevated to a top priority. Again, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us this afternoon. It has been an enlightening discussion. I think that we all have identified some areas that right now, immediately, we're going to be able to go out and take some action items for Congress to do their part and for the Veterans Administration to do their part to make sure that the veterans are, again, getting the best care that they possibly can. This is by no means the last hearing that the committee will hold on artificial intelligence. It's an expanding, complex area that warrants serious oversight. I want to thank Dr. Miller Meeks and the Health Subcommittee for working with us and for delving into AI projects that the Veterans Health Administration has underway. With that, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous material. And without objection, we will adjourn.